it was confrontational. It's like, by God, we wanna get our royalty, we wanna be made whole. That's what we said.
Okay, let's read
Now,
that,
let me-
let's
let me-
read it again.
Let me finish it.
Okay,
That last line said that. The first part says, oh yeah, we love the mine on and on and on. Well, that's all right, but it's the last line that everybody got pissed off about.
I don't agree
The
with
last line to me could have said, tell us how much this is gonna cost in potential revenue, this exchange. You tell us how much,
Monty, we
Instead of-
asked that.
well, I'm just saying
Nobody
it
would
wasn't
tell
in
us.
that letter.
Well, it doesn't matter, they'd already told
Well, it
us.
does matter, it matters now because that's what the issue is.
The letter,
Which letter are we talking?
I'll print that one out again too, if I can find it.
Is that the one that you drafted?
That's the one that we gave Monty yesterday.
Yeah,
Are you wanting the one that we amended, or the one that,
well, I got both of them,
You got
I
both.
don't need either one of them. I'm just saying the last line on that thing, it's not, maybe there was a goodbye line or something, but the last line on the main paragraph, it said, we wanna be made whole essentially.
yeah, and I said,
Is that
is
the
that
support letter?
confrontational to say that?
Well, it's, when they're asking you for a letter of support, and you say, if we're made whole, we're gonna give you a letter of support, essentially what it says.
Well, yeah, but what choice do we have? Just say, okay, we support it
I'm
without
just
being.
saying, that's why you have a fight with the public. Public's reading it like I'm telling you.
Okay, that
Okay.
makes sense.
It does, but there's also other public that's.
I'm just saying there's a
opposite.
hell of a lot easier way to, not easier, better way of putting it to them without it sounding like this or else. Yet, we might get to that, we might have got to that point. But there just seems to be a lack of a lot of information here.
Oh, boy.
Well, we've got the information now, but we didn't when they tried to get a letter of support. We can't write a letter of support if we don't know how we're gonna be harmed in a deal.
That's why I said you should have asked them
We
But we
did.
We did.
in the letter.
They, well,
Oh,
they
my
told us that we weren't gonna be harmed. We wouldn't lose anything.
Did they tell you that on the phone?
No, 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 no. We literally went there. We've been there how many times? To the mine itself, talked with Parker Phipps.
And
In
they
person.
don't acknowledge that federal royalty changes?
Well, they did after we pinned him
Yeah.
down on it, and Danes told us we weren't affected either. And then when we pinned him down on it, then everybody was, well, just keep your mouth shut or the mine's gonna shut down.
That's what he told us. That's what Danes told us.
And we said, well, we don't think it's that simple. We think we should be able to negotiate with all the stakeholders, and we can come up with a revenue sharing arrangement that makes everybody happy. And they said, you have no right to negotiate this, it's a private matter. And I don't agree with that.
I don't agree with it on the surface at all. I mean, that's what the gross proceeds is supposed to do, is heal you up for what they're doing to you. That's what it's made for.
No, gross
Federal
proceeds,
royalty is not made for that
no,
purpose.
gross proceeds is to give the county its share of its tax revenue because the coal is being mined in Muscle
Well, of
County.
course it is, but but it says right in the statutory language that it's to heal you up, so to speak.
Yeah, it's because-
to make up for the damages that are being done and the
Yeah.
extra costs you're taking on and stuff like that. That's what it says.
All right,
But it doesn't say that in federal royalty. And it doesn't say that in the other 2 or 3 little taxes that they're being paid. It just strikes me that, that federal royalty, if Danes or any of them was looking at what the royalties have been, they're like, well, I don't understand what they're talking about.
yeah, then everybody says, what are you arguing about such a small amount of money? Because they're trying to quantify that based on past, when there hasn't been any federal money for us in the past, or there's been very little, because most of the mining of the federal coal is in the future.
Well, that's fairly obvious, yeah. But that's back to my saying, you have to tell me in writing what it's gonna cost us. Then I have something to argue back in writing, instead of this, he said, she said stuff, for the benefit of the public.
You know, and we've asked the Danes office that very question twice, and they've ignored us. They won't.
I would be surprised if the Danes office understands it.
Well, what we made a point of is that, you know, the public wants to know. You're gonna run up against this, not just with us, but anytime you trade something that's owned by the federal government for something else, you gotta have a value there. Well, shoot, there's none.
So what are these guys gonna do if that, in the meantime, for that, assuming this change happened 2 years from now, or a year from now,
Yeah,
what are they gonna do here to mine coal? Mine these panels and stop at the federal and go to the next one, or?
no, can't do that.
They will,
We'll get
there's
that
gonna be
stopped
something
yet,
that'll
no.
happen.
Well,
within-
they'll mine the federal coal, that's federal coal.
Yeah, well, they're allowed to now, because they are allowed to do that until
The
the
exchange happens.
EIS is done.
Right.
Well, no, they're not. They're not allowed to mine any federal coal right now
But,
unless the Bull Mountain Planning Act, Bull Mountain Planning Modification Act gets passed, which buys them a year of mining the
Yes.
federal coal. And
Would-
then the. and
That's
then-
what I meant
Yeah.
to say, yes.
So we support the bull mining, you know, you go ahead, pass that.
Well, that's just to keep them from fighting the exchange, is what that was made to do, so they have time to get this exchange done.
yeah,
The best solution for the mine is the Crow Revenue Act.
Is the what?
Crow Revenue Act. Because then the federal government can never shut them down again.
it'll take home.
Yeah, they're out of it.
And so, and we kind of support that too, except for we're like, well, but you can amend the act to make us whole.
So, the Hope family
Yeah,
gives that coal to the Crow tribe
possibly.
down on the reservation. That's the first part of this exchange, correct?
Largely,
That
that's
And
was-
we don't know. They've got a revenue sharing agreement, that's what we know.
Well, the
Why
exchange
is-
is, they'll exchange so many acres for so many acres.
Yeah.
and
I
that's-
know it, but why is it that this coal has anything to do with either one of them?
Because in the act, what is listed as the mineral rights that the Hope family's gonna get for giving the property in Bighorn County to the Crow tribe is those sections.
But why is that happening down there? What does that have to do with anything?
What do you mean, why is it Native American?
Why the Hope family is giving anything to the Native Americans to start with? What's triggered that?
Well,
question.
that was, I think that was creative thinking to say, the only way you're gonna get the government to give up its federal mineral royalties is to help the Crow Nation, and how can you do that? Well, hey, Hope family, you own some land, you own some mineral rights, give them the mineral rights in your, and then we'll say that,
What you're saying is why is the Hope family even involved?
Well, yeah, what
Yeah,
does
well,
that have to
yeah,
do with
That's what
anything?
we've asked.
that's what we've,
So then, but if you look, there was a history that Signal Peak Energy had in leasing that very
From down there.
parcel of the Hope family here 15 years ago. And then they ran into a little snag on that lease and then they canceled it. They only had it for 2 years. 2013, February of 2013, they canceled in 2015. And they went, because it was complicated, there was too many complicated issues with the lease and the Crow Nation, supposedly. They went over to the Northern Cheyenne and did the same thing and just leased it from them, which was a lot clearer. So they abandoned it. They abandoned this Hope family lease.
So the payoffs of the mine, leading from the question I asked, why that's anything at all. Payoff to the mine here, you're suggesting is because they avoid paying a federal royalty?
the mine's not getting paid anything off. What happens for the mine is they get to keep operating without having to shut down when they run up against federal coal.
And somebody, and some environmental group comes in and says, you have not complied with your environmental environmental impact statement. And they shut them down because of it, because they find people like, they find judges like Mr. Malloy.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, if they just get rid of the ownership of federal coal, turn it private, then then an EIS issue is no longer even valid. It's not even, it's not a concern.
And
I
that's-
don't blame the mine for trying to do that. I honestly
I
don't.
don't, I just,
I just
blame-
I don't see where the mine is. I mean, I kinda see around the corner that, but it looks to me like it's a hell of a lot easier to get
Go straight to
the
the county.
moratorium on mining coal than an exchange like that.
Yeah,
Well, when you look at that Crow Revenue Act, I swear to God that it was not developed by Danes. It was developed by the Signal Peak Energy, because they'd already had the relationship with that Hope family. He says, well, we know they own some coal. Let's put this in a bill and we'll get the Crow Nation to, we'll call it the Crow Revenue Act, because that will pass. And we'll get them involved, and I'll bet you this thing will happen. That's why it's convoluted.
it is common.
but
It's just, why the Hope family's even involved makes no sense.
But the public, like what you're getting to is the public. We have nothing against the mine.
No.
We don't have a fight with the mine. We have a fight with the act. The act excludes us as revenue sharing.
Yes.
And that's what our fight is with. And we don't, and here's the other piece to it too, is we were going to accept the act and fully support the act until the Trump administration came, and then it became clear that they were likely to get their EIS expedited or get some sort of order to be able to mine federal coal. Because
Which makes that move,
they make you, why are you even doing
Well,
this? You know, why
Not
are we even doing
entirely
this?
moot. Environmental groups can still come in and
That's what
file
Parker, he
complaints.
wants that federal coal completely gone, because then they don't get sued by the.
well, I understand that, all that does is cost lots of money
But they're,
and time.
but the argument about them shutting down is moot because of the recent 6,700 acre
Addition.
permit, amendment.
Yeah, they're expanding their mining to the east, did you say?
Yeah, they're gonna mine off to the east, whether they get that federal coal or not.
So the mine's not gonna shut down over
They're
this
not
federal
shutting
coal
down.
issue, period.
They're just not.
Over this issue.
Right. Before they might have, before they expanded,
then-
and before the Trump
exactly.
administration, if it was Biden was continuing, they.
He
damn
would've
sure
shut 'em
would've
down.
Shut down.
Oh, I fault, it sure kept trying. But this argument against this federal coal mining in court, it's still there, that's still not something that's a done deal. I mean, they aren't shut off from federal coal forever, though you say this a 1-year extension. In that 1 year, I'll guarantee you they'll get the rest of it opened up, because there's nothing the environmental groups can do except keep suing and slowing it down, that's all it's about. They don't give a damn what it's true.
Well, and that's why the long-term solution is best, is to say, get it out of the hands of the federal and go ahead and make it private. But if they do that, we're saying, do it in a way that we don't lose our revenue.
We don't, we highly support it. Moving that coal out of federal ownership, it's just in the manner that
lose
they're
the royalty
doing it,
there,
it's
too.
not making sense.
What's that?
You'd lose the royalty there too. If they took it out of federal ownership,
Well, so that's the concern, and I'm sorry, I'm Ben Cook, I'm the county attorney. The ultimate concern is that the way that they're doing this, for the county to have the same kind of revenue stream coming in that we're using to operate now, that we would have to raise everyone's property taxes in order to make up that shortfall. And we
other than
know
the
we
fact
do
that this past year, the federal royalty was $4,000.
Yeah, but it's.
It isn't
we-
because of that, it's because of something else.
But
But what you just said is not true in the other, if we're going $4,000 this year and $3.8 million the year before, we didn't have to raise the taxes this year, they went down.
But that's incorrect, because we're, instead of dealing with private ownership, we'd be dealing with the ownership of it's under federal land, and so the income derived would be significantly different.
Well, that's what I was just saying. I says if you
Right.
put it all in private land, you don't have a federal royalty anymore.
Right, we
You
lose
do
that.
the same problem that you're fighting here, correct?
Yeah,
Correct?
no, no.
If you go to private land with it instead of federal, you lose the federal royalty.
Right,
Right.
That's what's happening when the Hope family takes it over, it goes to private. The federal royalty goes away. That's the problem.
yes.
So you don't want it to all go to private land, you want it to go, you
Well, we
want it to
say
stay
if,
federal,
well,
so you
hang
have
on, hang on,
revenue.
hang on. It can go to private land if we're included in the revenue
Yeah.
sharing arrangement.
Yeah,
And we don't lose that. In other words, they could easily say that the Hope family has to enter into a revenue sharing with the Crow tribe and Muscle Shell County.
Yeah, I was getting rid of the whole issue down
Well,
there. That-
you,
that to me- that
guess
to
what,
me is-
guess what? I agree with you, I agree with you 100%, but the argument is if they don't turn that into private coal, even if Trump does help them get their EIS, somebody can still try and sue them.
Well, that ain't gonna go away.
No.
That's what's been going on for 30 years.
It doesn't have to be
20 with
federal
these
coal
guys.
to not get sued, you know, they could get sued for their other coal mining they're doing too, so. But anyway, but that's our point, Monty, is we think that, and what Ben was trying to say, if we lose between $5 and $35 million over the next 6 to 10 years or whatever, we're gonna have to make up for that revenue shortfall somehow.
Yeah, you are. I
And
agree
it's
with
likely to
that.
erode
I
something
recall the
property.
years when the gold mine shut down up in Malta, in Phillips County,
Yeah.
what it did to them, when it wasn't ever gonna shut down.
yeah.
It ain't gonna shut down because of this thing, this Hope family exchange.
Yeah,
There's
let's say that
other-
whole,
there's
let's say
others-
Crow Revenue Gap doesn't happen, that mine is not gonna shut down.
Well, I hope not.
Well, nobody knows for 100%, but the chances are a lot better now that it won't shut down than it was before.
Especially with the administration sitting there right now.
Yeah.
That's the only reason we're piping back up, is we say now we have a chance to get it right.
Keep it federal, take the royalty on the whole thing, and let them just mine it, and get them guys out of the damn thing.
Well,
You tell them.
Yeah,
Well, I will.
sure.
Okay.
Well, I think that too, but then they're gonna say we're at risk of somebody suing us, some
Yeah.
environmental group. suing us.
that's exactly what Northern Plains Resource wants to happen. They want it to stay,
Yeah.
but they want to release they're saying that, hey, put some stronger rules in there, please, environmental rules, and nobody's gonna be suing you.
Well, they ain't gonna get that done
Well,
with the new administration.
But that was Northern Plains'
No, right.
position,
Well, of course. That's what their position has been since the day they were formed out here at Bob Tully's.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
mine's biggest problem with that act was that it keeps it in federal hands.
It
That's
was.
what Parker said.
Did it what?
So if you put that, if you replace Muscle Shoal County with the federal ownership, they would have no problem with it.
Yep, yep. Which itself would have to mean the act would have to be revised,
Advice.
and the federal government would have to agree to give the land, the mineral rights to Muscle County, and Governor Forte would have to say that's okay.
Well, that's a big step, a big, long step. That might be something to be working on in the long term.
Yeah, good point.
But the best way it could happen is just leave it be federal coal, let them goddamn guys sue. They ain't won one yet. And get on with it. From you guys' standpoint, the federal royalty would still be coming in here and it wouldn't have nothing to do with it,
I'd be
lawsuit
happy
on the
to,
side.
we'd be really happy.
Well, if they
If you're
release-
worried about a lawsuit from Northern Plains shutting that mine down, we should have been worried about it from the
There's
day
a
it
chance
started.
the EIS will be released.
It changes the way they direct things sometimes, but
I think you have a grasp of the issue.
Yeah, I do.
Which, and I don't think, we've been pointed, you either support the act or you guys are anti-Signal Peak, and it's just not the case.
so what are you gonna do to make up to them?
Well, we are, just so you know, we are looking at ways to communicate, and we would love to talk to Parker and them and everybody and say, hey, this is, we've kind of lost sight of what we're all trying to do here. We're not against the mine, we're not against the mine.
I think we'll go back, because we just talked to him here a month ago, we actually had a phone conversation with him. But we'll go see him.
But see, I think the mine thinks, Parker's implied, you either support the act or you're against the mine.
Exactly.
Well,
That's
that
not-
might be.
So how do you amend that? I mean, you know,
That's what I'm asking you, what are you gonna do to change that? Because
you
that's
just
not
gotta
a
let
good
people, you just
position
gotta
to
let,
be in, and make this all work and
Well,
everybody.
they can pull all kinds of things out of the behind and say this to people, when in fact, it's not true.
Well,
Well,
why can't we
that's
just
what
put a
Northern
bill in
Plains,
place?
that's what Northern Plains has done since the day they were formed.
Why can't we put our
That
own
might
bill
be
in place
the-
that says the exact the same that and removes the language that the mine has a problem with? Surely we can get somebody to
the
stand.
mine
behind
doesn't
it,
have a problem,
They don't have
one,
any
with
problem.
any of the act language.
Except that first couple of words.
No, they don't care at all about the act federal. They're just saying, you either agree with this act the way it is, or you're anti-mine.
Right.
And we're saying, we don't agree with it because it excludes us and we lose our federal mineral money.
No, I mean Parker said he would support, that if the county supported
Okay.
a different act that put the land in county hands and not in private hands,
You
and
know
they'd
what,
support
Teresa,
that.
you're right.
That's the
We need to
quickest,
be
best
pushing that
solution.
as a longer term. That would be what I would replace the Crow Revenue Act with
Mhm.
right now.
Yep.
And it becomes Muscle County, the federal government agrees to do that, which now you wonder if they would with Trump, because they'll lose money. You know, federal government's gonna lose their share too in this.
If it
Why
goes to
do
the
you
Hope
care?
family, they're
Trump
gonna
will.
lose it, might as well lose it going to the county. And then it still serves local government instead of private. Anyway,
Yeah, can
I
you
should shut up.
imagine a rancher somehow or another walking into a bill like this, where he's gonna come out smelling like a rose, $80 million more? I mean, and that family was, it was a decent family. I got to meet this old man years ago, when he was still alive, with good people. But they sure as the hell didn't have money in the bank. They didn't have, nope. They're just like the rest of us.
Well, now there's probably 25 interests in the family that have got their hands out.
Or more, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
But there's a good chance that EIS may be released and it's favorable.
yeah,
That'll end it
We,
too.
we say this about the Hope family, but we don't know the agreement between them and the Crow tribe that's
Nobody
referenced in the bill. So
I know.
they may not be getting that kind of money.
well, they might get it, they may not give it to the Crow.
Yeah.
But it's like, Bonnie said, well, what do you care?
Yeah, I don't have nothing to do with what your issue is, but I'm curious still to see what gain there is to the mine for that now.
Yeah.
No, the gain to, okay, the, Parker said he's not getting any of that federal, he's not a part of that revenue. The mine gains by not shutting down when they run up against
That's
federal.
it.
and not having to get sued all the time
Yes,
because it's a
that's what they
federal
mean.
ownership. Yeah.
They gain, and he's saying that if they don't solve this by the end of the fourth quarter of this year, December 31st, 2025, he will shut the mine down. He doesn't have anywhere else to mine. But now that's not true, because they're just expanding their permit.
You look at that map and you think, mine must be thinking, we're so stupid not to start mining on the west end. And this will all be behind us now, it won't be an issue. But they didn't, they started mining on the east end and moved towards the BLM. They should have mined the BLM while they still had the right to do so.
Of course.
But hindsight's a wonderful thing.
Well, it's also sad that Yellowstone County really doesn't care, because they've
And
got
I
all
think
their
that was
revenue.
part of it, because they mined under Yellowstone County for a lot of those years.
They got all kinds of money.
Because Yellowstone County had
Oh, full house today.
full house.
All right, well, are we done, with
I'm
public?
done, yeah.
Okay, and Monty, let's keep talking. Appreciate your input and your interest.
Hey, we got our application for water for the airport.
Did you approve it? Okay.
We haven't filled it out, but we signed it. We gotta fill it out.
So
I
you
suppose
need,
you need a check too.
yeah, you need to fill it out, sign it, and then turn it in with the check, so they get it in the queue,
Okay.
because they're headed down the road this way, so,
All right, well, we appreciate that.
okay?
I've got a question about that. I have it here for the water requirements. So it's for the airport. It doesn't really, we don't really fit in any of this. Can that be blank, or do we need to fill in the other section and just put airport
Of-
use?
The airport is the one that's.
No, I know, but right here it says water requirements, number of persons
Oh.
in household, feeder, cows, hogs.
Just tell us
etc.
what size line you want,
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what determines the check.
yeah.
I put that on
And it
the.
says location of water hookup indicate enclosed on
No,
map.
you ain't gonna have a water hookup, that, we're doing a tap into the, this is a little different deal. We're doing a tap into the main line, so they have a way to get water to the airport if this district falls apart.
Yeah.
Okay, so
That's all
what
it's
I-
about.
what I'm hearing you say, is that we just fill out the water user, our telephone information, this, the landowner, and,
Yeah, the
the
size
legal
of the
description,
si-
and the size of the
size of
pipe,
the pipe
and
and the
then the
check.
rest of it doesn't matter.
That's right,
Good, very good. Excellent.
yeah, because we can work all that out later, just so we get the hookup in there before they go by.
Yeah.
Then they get really expensive. Did you guys decide what size pipe?
Well, I'm thinking 2 inch, what do you
We
think?
were thinking 2 inch, what do you think?
I think 2 inches is perfect, $269 a month.
Okay, we love it.
Okay, so I'll put that under the other, I'll put on other here, line, 2-inch pipe, please. Yeah?
Right,
2 inch service.
2 inch service.
that's what we need to tell the engineers, is what I,
And then that'll determine how much we pay and
yeah,
everybody's happy.
yeah. And
See,
we probably don't have to, on this instance, worry about you guys having to pay that monthly until we decide to use it.
Well, I appreciate that.
well, God bless
I
you.
mean, the district might use that tap too, for all I know, if they get it for them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Make an agreement with you guys, so.
well, I appreciate it, and this was a lot
I'm
better
glad-
conversation, I think. we-
I'm glad you came in and talked about this more because,
Yeah. I hope you feel better.
I slept like a rock that night.
All right, I'm gonna close public comment.
Yeah.
Is there any public comment on any matter within this jurisdiction of the commission not on the agenda, that's twice, going 3 times? Is there any public comment on any public matter within the jurisdiction of the commission that's not on the agenda? Hearing none, public comment is closed.
Thank you. I promised John that we'd only take 15 minutes.
You said 10.
Okay, 10. So we gotta talk really fast.
Well, I was gonna tell my life story.